Hi, my name's Trevor Brown. I'm the Dean of the John Glenn College of Public Affairs, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all tonight to the inaugural WOSU John Glenn College of Public Affairs Dialogue. The Glenn College have been doing a series called Dialogue for the last 3 years, where we pick a timely, engaging, and sometimes contentious topic with the goal of educating people about the issues and ideally engaging you in a discussion. So over the last 3 years, if you go to the Glenn College's website, you'll see the various topics that we've done in the past. And the idea is we get somebody on the stage or in front of the audience who knows something about the topic, that they're informed and offer a perspective. But then we hope to hear from a variety of people from a variety of different perspectives. And all that we ask is that you be respectful and civil. And so we know that sometimes the things that we talk about in the public square get us excited and energized, and that's ideally what we want to accomplish. That's one of our goals in the Glenn College, is to get people to engage in topics that impact all of us, but to do it in a way that we learn from each other and we agree to disagree, but we still walk away friends. So in that spirit, I want to turn the microphone over to my friend and our new partner here in this event, Tom Ryland from WOSU.
Thanks, Trevor. We're just thrilled to have this collaboration with the Glenn College, and you're going to see a lot more of these forums similar to tonight on many interesting topics throughout 2018. This is kind of our inaugural, so be kind, okay? Be kind. We have, first of all, let's welcome Sam Sanders from NPR to Columbus. Sam spent some time at the Glenn College with a bunch of students, has had a great day. Went running along the river today. Nice day for that. It's always this way in Columbus, right? It's just beautiful every day here. We have a crew here that you see, and we are live streaming on Facebook. You can go to the WSU or the Glenn College Facebook page and follow that if you don't want to watch us. And tell your friends, text your friends. We're also broadcasting this on television. There's this thing called television. We're broadcasting it on Monday night on the WSU Ohio channel at 8 p.m. next Monday night. So we hope you enjoy it. And, this is a dialogue. This is about not just observing, but participating. So we're going to be encouraging you to participate throughout this next hour. And we want you to take that seriously and ask questions. And to explain that more, I'm going to introduce now Mike Thompson, who's the Chief Content Director of News and Public Affairs at WSU and also the host of Columbus on the Record, which you all watch on Friday night on WSU TV. Mike?
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for choosing us over John Kasich's State of the State address tonight in Westerville. Spoiler alert, the governor will say it is strong and getting stronger. So there you go. Thank you all for coming. This, as Trevor and Tom said, this is Dialogue. That's the name of this forum. We want you to participate. Here's how this is going to work. Sam and the two guests will talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to you all. And we have two microphones, one here, one there. When you have a question, when you want to say something, just go up to the mic, and we'll include you in the conversation. We really want you to take part. This isn't a typical speaker series where you sit there and listen, and we want it to be a two-way situation. Our only request is that you keep your questions and your comments and your stories short. This is dialogue, not soliloquy. So, dialogue. We're also going to take some questions from online. We are streaming through Facebook, through the Glenn College's Facebook page and WOSU's Facebook page. So Deirdre is going to be the voice of the internet. She's going to relay the comments and questions. Deirdre does not have a Russian accent, so we're good there. I talked to her earlier. So anyway, so without further ado, let me introduce our guest. Merry Korn. She is the founder of Pearl Interactive Network. It's a professional services company, social entrepreneur. She gives hiring priority to veterans, disabled veterans, and military spouses and other disabled folks to work in her company. So she is here. Also, Tanisha Robinson. She is only in her mid-30s, and she's already founded and sold 3 companies. And she is now the CEO of BrewDog America, based down in Canal, Winchester. Elvis Juice IPA. I highly recommend it. We don't have it here, but check it out. And then, of course, Sam Sanders. He is the new voice of NPR. He is dragging us old fuddy-duddies to the future, kicking and screaming. And it's really wonderful to have him here in Columbus. He started out, we first got to know him on the NPR Politics beat in 2016. He was chasing around Bernie Sanders and other presidential candidates. He was a co-founding host of the NPR Political Podcast. I still miss him on there. But we hear him every Sunday morning at 10 on 89.7 NPR News with It's Been a Minute with Sam Sanders. It's a terrific weekly wrap-up of the week's news and also a deep dive into pop culture. So with that, Sam Sanders, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, guys. It's so good to be here. So I did not realize until about 2 hours ago that this was also going to be on TV. I don't do a lot of TV, so I went into freak-out mode because there's certain things that you're not supposed to do on TV. One, I can't move my arms around too much like I do in the studio. And two, I have to be careful about how I look. So I'm like wearing this special mattifying powder to make sure my forehead doesn't shine too much. I'm sure at some point I'll start to sweat and it'll all be for naught. But I will try to be camera friendly. I'm sure you guys are much better at that than I am. But just to give you guys a sense of how this hour will flow, I have a few questions for my guests, and then we're going to open it up to you all to ask questions of our guests. And you should feel free to ask whatever you feel like, but as was mentioned before, questions end in question marks. So with that, I'm going to ask a few of my own. I had the honor and privilege of being able to read up on you guys over the last few days, and I'm just so impressed by the work that you've done. And when I think of the work that you're doing, you're not just entrepreneurs, you are social entrepreneurs, and that is something that is different from just owning and running a business. So I want you both to start, define for me what you think of as social entrepreneurship and how the work that your companies do fits into that. Whoever wants to go first.
So my definition of social enterprise is when you combine a social mission with a business mission. And this is a time for another topic. This could be a completely different topic, but there are nonprofit social enterprises and there are for-profit. I believe we're both for-profit. But bottom line is a business mission and social mission is a winning formula.
Okay.
Because the people we ultimately touch, they benefit, but it's good business. It's great business because if I am going to a store and I have an option between two products and I know that one of them will mean children in some remote country get dental care, I'd be willing to spend more, and I would guess a lot of people would.
Yeah.
So it's a good business.
Okay. Tell me more about how your business fits into that model.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a clinical social worker by background, and I love business, and there was no school of social enterprise when I went to graduate school at Ohio State.
The Ohio State.
The Ohio State, which I hope for all of the people here that you have that as an option. But I struggled because here I was a clinical social worker, and I mentioned business in the Graduate School of Social Work at The Ohio State. And people would be like, oh, she's corporate. She doesn't belong here. And I didn't belong in the business school, and I didn't belong in the social work school because nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. But I felt like I was wearing the wrong size. I was wearing the shoes on the wrong feet because what I really wanted to do is own a really big business that made the world a better place.
Yeah. And now you have one. Talk more about what it does.
So we have a company that at our hiring peak, we have over 500 employees.
Okay.
Our hiring priority has always been disabled vets, military spouses, and people with disabilities from day one. And I mentioned having a social enterprise is great business because it opened doors in Washington, and it helped us get a very large multi-year contract.
Okay. Doing what?
We run one of the affordable care call centers.
Okay.
It's a 9-year contract.
Good on you.
And I've never wavered from always giving hiring priority to our niche.
Yeah. And I was reading, you said that the reason that you chose this kind of as your mission is that you had an employee with a certain disability and they were your best employee. Is that correct?
Oh, I've had multiple.
Multiple,
It's good business because when you give the disenfranchised a chance to work, they're so excited because they're disenfranchised. The people we hire, employers don't want to hire. They don't know how to hire them. They're scared to hire them. And when you give them a chance, and they're so grateful
I bet.
that they stay longer, they work harder, and it's good business.
All right. I love it. So how does beer fit into social enterprise?
So I think having built other businesses that, and certainly at BrewDog, I would define a social enterprise as any business that's using its existence as a lever for impact. So at BrewDog, we have something called the Unicorn Fund. We distribute 10% of our profits evenly amongst our team. So in each of our bars, that means that the dishwasher and the manager get the same bonus at the end of the year. So that's really, really impactful. We focus on really affordable benefits. All of our people, including hourly workers, have 4 weeks of paid time off. And all of that has its own impact because we're not perpetuating the cycle of poverty in our community as an employer. Like I have a big problem with employers that are paying people minimum wage, limiting paid time off, paternity leave. We actually have something called paternity leave. So if you get a puppy, you get a week off to bond with your dog.
Can I work for you?
Yes.
That is really cool.
And we also have leave for people that have children as well. That's a but in terms of the business being a lever for impact, it's one, how do we treat our own people, because then they go out in the community and have an impact. And then we also use our beers for impact. So we are known for doing protest beers. We launched one just today, actually, called Pink IPA, which is focused on bringing attention to the issue of gender pay and equity. So at our bars globally, women get a 20% discount on Pink IPA. Because they also make 20% less, and it's legal. But we're also donating 20% of the proceeds of the sale of Punk IPA and Pink IPA to women's organizations fighting for pay equity all over the world. So, so as kind of a very conventional business, we have changed our model and use it to have an impact. So, so even though we don't necessarily, it's not necessarily linear like Mary's business is, we definitely have a social mission and believe that that our business can change the communities in which we work.
Yeah. So a company that I'm obsessed with, and I've covered a bit in my work, is Facebook. And when you hear Mark Zuckerberg talk about Facebook and his mission for that company, it sounds very social enterprisey. It sounds like it is this mission for good. He says that he wants to use his platform to connect the world. And it feels great, and it sounds great. But as soon as you dig into that company, you see that they're doing some possibly nefarious stuff. They're mining all of your data. They see you more than you know all the time. They are aware of foreign influence on their platforms. They haven't done enough to stop it. They have an iffy relationship with the facts on their site. And to me, it begs the question, how can any business that is concerned with its bottom line be equally concerned with social good? Sometimes these things just don't jive, right? Like, some would say that even the idea of social enterprise is oxymoronic. Jumbo shrimp. Two things, it doesn't go together. To those kind of critics and to folks that would point to examples like Facebook, how do you defend the very ideal, I think, of social enterprise and making money and doing good? Because a lot of folks would say, doesn't jive. Either.
I mean, I'll go first on this one.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's a question that I reflect on a lot is, does it matter to our community that our business exists? And I think that, and hopefully in a positive way. So, I think there are a lot of businesses, I mean, Facebook, I think a lot of their issues are a byproduct of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Though I think some of the nefarious things are probably intended as well. So, I can't speak to that, but I think if more employers at least tried to be conscious and intentional about the impact that they have with their teams and their business and their profits and how that affects their communities, I would say that I think both the for-profit realm in general would be a lot better. But I think the bigger issue is that for-profit companies are often worried about returns to shareholders and not thinking about how do we take better care of our people, how do we provide more value to the community. And and a lot of, especially publicly traded massive companies, can't possibly do something like the Unicorn Fund because their shareholders would revolt. There would be, they would get taken over because people, investors don't want that. But I think communities do, and I think we at least at BrewDog feel like we have an opportunity to prove the market wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my response is going to be very blah, blah, old school.
I'm sure it'll be great.
The bottom line is social enterprise, if it's for profit, it's a business. And I've been really involved with the Social Venture Fund, which, by the way, for anyone thinking of joining or starting a social enterprise, I can't speak highly enough. They provide guidance on funding and education, and plus, quite honestly, I promise to give them a plug tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
But I go back to social enterprise. No matter how wonderful your mission is, you have to have a business plan. You have to do profit and loss. If you're not good in finance, which I'm terrible
I mean, you can't be that bad at it.
No, I'm terrible. But
Said profit and loss, though.
It's more than most
but you
technical.
have to surround yourself by good accountants and bankers, and it's still numbers. But the best advice someone gave me a long time ago when I said, oh, my dream is to have thousands of employees and give the most difficult to employ a chance. He gave me advice, and for those of you wanting to start a social enterprise, remember this. Think really, really, really big. Have this massive vision, because the bigger you are, the more people you're going to touch.
Yeah.
And I like your point on math, Mary, which is that if you don't have money, you can't make an impact. It's really hard. And so, as you think about profits, money can be a magnifier for impact and for change. And so as you think about being an entrepreneur and building a business, you got to eat, and it's hard to take care of your team if you don't have a solid bottom line, and it's hard to take care of your community if you don't have profits. And so they can be absolutely tied. Like, I think money and impact are inherently tied together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautifully.
Yeah. I'm sure you both know people that work in the nonprofit or not-for-profit world who say, well, there's no business to any of this. We just use all of our energy and all of our effort to do good. What do you, besides the fact that you guys want to make a profit, are there inherent big differences between social enterprise and nonprofits that make you lean towards one over the other?
You go ahead.
Do you want me? Yeah. Okay. I think that more and more the world is changing in terms of grants and funds to nonprofits. And I feel that it behooves nonprofits to start looking at ways to become more like business, because grants dry up. Today, I was doing some research on federal spending, and I shouldn't be shocked. And we're not going to get political, right?
We can, why not? Sure.
I'm a black woman with an afro, and I'm a lesbian. I'm always political. It's on.
But I went to the Department of Health and Human Services website to peruse where is the spending. And I was stunned by how many cutbacks are planned for 2018 in healthcare. And I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? I was horrified. And the bottom line is nonprofits, the cheese is moving. The cheese is moving, and the smarter shareholders and board members are going to demand that they operate more like businesses.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not happening yet, but when there's a school of social enterprise at Ohio State, that might change.
Well, and I mean, there's just other things I think that nonprofits have to face when you think of this community of donors that they rely on. Things like a recession make those donors give less, and there's a lot of metrics that indicate that donor giving really hasn't fully bounced back yet from like the last recession. It's scary. Anyway.
Yeah, I think my wife actually runs the homeless system here in Central Ohio, and I think that there are some problems that definitely can be addressed with social enterprise and with a businessy approach. But if you think about like homelessness, for example, which is growing in our community, the answer to getting homeless people to pay for a room is called a hotel. And so there is not necessarily a business case to address some of the really intractable problems in our community. So education is a tough one, and hunger is a hard one where it really is in many ways a donor based model, which is again why I think if all for-profit businesses were thinking about how to deploy their profits to impact the community, and there's policy issues around that, of course, but there are not all things can be addressed with social enterprise, but I think a lot of hard problems can be.
Yeah, yeah. I'm realizing just now I asked that really tough question about Facebook, not realizing that we're on Facebook Live. Sorry, Mark. It's fine.
Actually,
It's
we're
fine.
not. We're not. They pulled the plug.
The feed was just cut off all of a sudden. I feel like every conversation I have on the show these days, I have to talk about the politics of the moment affects what people do. A year into the Trump presidency, how has it changed the work that you do?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go first. Yeah, so we're doing more protest beers than ever.
Okay. There's that.
I think in many ways, from a marketing and branding perspective, we have decided that we want F-YAs or F-Us as a response and a reaction to our work. So I gave a talk at a marketing conference called "We Don't Want Nazis to Buy Our Beer." And some people were like, "Ooh, do you think that's okay to say in public?" And
How is it not okay to say?
Yeah, I know. Right?
We don't. You don't.
Right, we don't. Not misogynists and racists or homophobes either. So, but I think for a lot of brands, it's an opportunity to really say, like, this is where we are, this is how we want to function as a business, and say, and maybe we're not for everyone, and that's okay. But I think that it's been really inspiring to see how people are reacting positively and negatively. But I think in some ways people choosing sides is really healthy and really interesting from a business perspective and a marketing perspective, versus being neutral and like, oh, well, we don't want to make the racists mad, so or we don't want to piss off the homophobes, like we're going for it.
Okay. Yeah. What about you? How's Trump changed what you do?
So my largest contract is affordable care.
Oh.
So it's been gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
But then ironic, and I don't really know what's behind his thinking on this, but he's very supportive of rural health care. So while he's taking away, he's kind of forcing our company to establish initiatives that are solutions for rural health care. So we're about to launch a supportive care and remote telehealth monitoring geared towards creating jobs in rural areas and servicing the needs of people in the most rural, poverty-stricken areas of the country. So while he's killing me in terms of my immediate business, this whole having to reinvent ourselves and providing jobs and healthcare in rural America is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag.
Okay. I want to open it up to questions from the floor. I'm going to keep asking some questions of my own, but we're going to mix it up with you guys as well. There are 2 mics on either side of this room. Feel free to come on up and ask away with a short, snappy question that ends in a question mark. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Oh, me?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a little high. I think one of the groups of people that are most disadvantaged in the employment arena are ex-offenders.
Yes.
And so my question to both of you is, or are your companies intentionally working to hire ex-offenders?
Okay, can I take that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so believe it or not, there are laws that require employers to hire ex-offenders as long as what they were arrested for is not related to the work you're doing. So there are laws now that, believe it or not, help ex-offenders.
Are you hiring them?
We have, and we're legally not allowed to not hire them if their offense has nothing to do with the work we hire them for. So it's a non-issue for us.
We are not actively seeking out returning citizens, but we don't check the box. So, like, that's something that's not relevant to, so someone's status, if they've paid their debt to society, is not relevant to whether or not we employ them. Which I think if more employers took that approach, it becomes a non-issue on intention versus like finding great people that fit well.
Could I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
I was just going to follow to say, I mean, watching as the country and pockets of the country are devastated by the opioid crisis, there are more Americans than ever, it seems,
Yes.
with drug records.
Yes.
How does that affect employment? Are you drug testing? What are you looking for? How are you responding? I mean, that crisis has drastically shrunken workforces throughout the country. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, we only drug test based on incident. Like if there was a workplace incident, we would have to do it, but otherwise we don't.
Okay. And you had a different follow on that question. I think I cut you off. I want to make sure you get it.
Oh, so we all have different missions in life. I hope all of you are living your mission, and those of you who are in millennials or students, I hope you find your mission. But and that's why you're here at school, I'm assuming. But the point that I'm making is I feel like part of my mission is finding creative ways to hire the most unemployable. And there are some companies, I love reading about companies doing innovative things. So we talked about Hot Chicken Takeover. They're a chicken restaurant. They have several restaurants, and they give hiring priority to ex-offenders, which is wonderful. So there are some wonderful, where is she? Oh, there's some wonderful companies doing more and more innovative things related to social enterprise and employing people that employers don't typically want to hire.
Yeah. Want to go there?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you both for coming to speak with us. And Sam, welcome to Columbus. Hope you enjoyed your walk.
I'm having a blast.
So my question for both of you is, have you ever had to make a decision that benefited your social enterprise but was at the expense of your business? So it didn't make business sense, but you decided to push through anyway.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so early on when I was a starving young business owner, I hired a completely blind employee, and to put her to work, I had to spend several thousands of dollars out of my own pocket to get this technology that enables blind people to work from home. And I thought, this is a test, and if my mission of this company, which by the way hasn't changed since I opened my doors, which is to give hiring priority to our niche workforce, if I'm going to be authentic about what I'm doing, I'm going to splurge, even though when I couldn't afford it, I spent the money to hire somebody who was completely blind. And oh, by the way, she's been with me for 13 years,
Wow.
and she's now been promoted to HR hiring manager.
Yeah.
But I couldn't afford it.
How about you?
I think for us, it's more that there are a lot of people that would make the argument that we shouldn't give our profits away. We should invest in growth, and we think that absolutely. So while some people would say that's a bad business decision, we think it's one of the cornerstones that drives our business forward.
Yeah. I'm going to get back in with questions from you guys, but I want to confirm what's our hard stop so I know how to wrap this up right. Give me a time. 7:15. Okay, so we got some good time. I have a question specifically for you, and then we're going to get back to you guys. In reading up on you, you have started a few businesses. How many businesses?
Well, I've started more than have been successful. I've burned a few to the ground.
Tell me how many. I want to know.
So, let's see, I've started 5 businesses.
How many made it?
So I sold 1 and 2 are still running today.
Which 2?
Ticket Fire and Print Syndicate.
Now, Print Syndicate's a T-shirt company.
Yep. So we're known most, like our piece de resistance is either the notorious RBG T-shirt, Ruth Bader Ginsburg with the tilted crown, or Time to Get Star Spangled Hammered.
I want that. How long do you spend at those companies before you move on to the next one?
Yeah, so I was at Ticket Fire for about 1.5 years and found a great team of engineers to take that business and run with it. And Print Syndicate I ran for 4 years.
Okay, so then with that, when BrewDog reaches out to you and says, be the CEO of our U.S. operation, are they going into it saying, we might just have it for 2 or 3 years? Are you going into it saying that, like, is your view of your role in this company guided by previous stints and shorter stints in business?
Yeah, I think, as I think about the businesses I built in my career, so I had Fuda, which was my first social enterprise. It was a daily deal site, like Groupon, but only for locally owned independent restaurants. For every certificate we sold, we gave $1 to the food bank. Wow. And and that was a super fun one, and kind of the first moment where I was like, wow, you can use this thing to do a lot of stuff. And we gave over $15,000 to the food bank in 14 months in business before we sold it as a 2-person company. So that was really cool. But I think with BrewDog, the reason I left my other businesses is I got bored. I love the mess and the challenge and the shit show of running a startup, like the early stage, high growth, hard stuff. And Ticket Fire is doing amazing things now. I wasn't the right person to take that to the next level. And with Print Syndicate, we had an insane first year and then tripled and kept growing and growing. And then as growth started to slow down, I was like, this is a great business and I love it, and I love like what we're doing even now, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. And so I was consulting with other people's startups. But I think for BrewDog, because we have global ambition, we announced a brewery in Brisbane, we're announcing a brewery in China soon, and we haven't built one yet in the Western United States or in South America. So there's so I think as long as there's a lot of challenge and a lot of fun for me, which is just the really hard stuff, I'll stay at BrewDog. It's a great fit for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me get back to questions. Go ahead right there.
Thank you so much. So, as my phone is not unlocking, are you seeing companies that are hoping to engage in social enterprise or social entrepreneurship and are not aware of the specific issues surrounding the population they're addressing or understanding the needs within that community and almost doing it to say, good for me, I'm engaging in the community without actually knowing what the community needs? And how might you suggest that companies or businesses can avoid that and truly engage with those they're serving or hope to incorporate in their business?
Could I take that?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so I keep coming back to, as old school as this is, business plan, business plan, business plan. Whatever you do, you need a business plan. But I understand nowadays millennials have like 2-page business plans, I guess. But if you do your research on anything you do, you should know your market inside and out. You shouldn't just know it, you should walk it, you should talk to the people. The businesses I've started, I've always done informational interviews where I sit down with everyone, technology providers, patients, payers. It's so important to really know your business backwards and forwards and have this business plan because it's your blueprint.
Yeah.
So that's my response.
In that process of figuring out your market and even figuring out your employee base with the folks that you hire, what is the most surprising thing you found out when you talked to some of these demographics? Like, was there a moment when you were doing market research or employee research where you said, I never knew that?
The big aha moment is when I started this company. I just started to hire people with disabilities because they stayed with me.
Yeah.
And the big aha moment, so it wasn't deliberate, and I didn't have the business plan because sometimes you just luck out. But I started hiring people who were quadriplegics and paraplegics. And my God, they had this work ethic that I was just stunned by.
That surprised you?
Yeah, when I worked in the corporate world, I literally had employees say, well, I can't come to work because my hair hurts. Or I couldn't get my car out of the garage. And it's like, oh, good grief.
Yeah.
Okay, just one quick aside, because this is so significant. I hired a quadriplegic veteran who hadn't worked in 29 years. And he came back from Vietnam, he fell off a roof, and he broke his back. So he had no use of his hands, and my stepson asked me if I would hire him, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I didn't know what I was doing, so why not? I hired this man who would be so sick, he couldn't get out of bed, and we had a hospital table put over his bed. And even as he had so little strength, he got on his computer and he made his calls. And what's so cool about technology is that he was able to do Google searches and do emails. And he was able to do work like any able-bodied person. But he was thrilled about his job.
Yeah.
And that was my big surprise.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Definitely. Her question to you.
So I think in terms of trying to align the business model to find the right people, I think we just think about like great fit and and can people contribute and but I wouldn't say that we necessarily have intentionality. I think that for us it's kind of the other way where we like the underlying infrastructure of our business is that we want to take great care of our people, and then they're the time and the money to go out and do good things, which is a model that I think is a good fit for us.
Yeah. Take it over here.
Thank you to all three of you again for coming tonight. I have a question for Tanisha. I didn't know if you could speak a little more on the Equity for Punks model that BrewDog has, and like in the sense of like the rate of growth and like if that has impacted like sense of community, and then also if that has any connection with like the social issues that BrewDog focuses on, or like the charities you partner with, or anything like that.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, she's talking about our Equity for Punks program. So BrewDog really pioneered equity crowdfunding before Indiegogo and GoFundMe and all those sorts of things existed.
And that means exactly equity crowdfunding.
Yeah, equity crowdfunding, like so you invest and get shares in the business. And of course, in BrewDog fashion, they drove a tank up the streets of London. So, but basically, that's something that we've done now in the UK 5 times, in the US 1 time, and we're launching another round soon in the US. So we have over 70,000 shareholders all over the world. And the entry point to become a shareholder is like $50. But that, and have raised over 73 million pounds. And that's been a big driver of capital and fuel to grow our business. So, so we have this community of people that are truly owners in our brewery and true stakeholders in our bars, and it's kind of awesome. Some of them, come in there, they own a couple of shares, and they do act like they own the place. But our equity punks help us choose the charitable organizations with our team on how we deploy our unicorn fund.
Now, are you also traded publicly, or this?
No, not.
So this is just totally separate.
Totally separate.
Okay.
Yep.
What do you? I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but what would be different if you were publicly traded?
So there would be basically an exchange for people that have shares.
Yeah. But I'm saying like with the psyche of the company, though.
I think there have been publicly traded companies that just did what they wanted.
Okay.
And so I think for us, we are in some ways already publicly traded, and BrewDog is valued was valued last year at $1.2 billion. Yeah, I think that we would have to be really adamant that we're not going to, that people understand our business model and that we're giving 20% of our profits away, and that's the model,
And that's
that's what we're doing, and that's it. And then see how the market would price that out potentially. Yeah. But I think if people know what they're buying and they believe in what we're doing and our growth, then it seems that there's not a lack of people that want to buy shares in BrewDog.
Okay, all right. Thank you. You, sir.
Hi, thanks for coming out tonight. My question is, I operate pretty much just as a one-person business, doing a lot of freelance work by myself. So what are some ways that I can give back to the community that I owe a lot of my success to, even if I don't have any employees and I'm just operating as a solo person business?
What do you do?
I'm a musician, and I play piano and also write music for podcasts and digital media and all kinds of other
Which
stuff.
podcast? I'm curious.
Some friends of mine in Columbus here operate a podcast called the Kessel Run Podcast. It's about everything Star Wars.
Okay.
So I did their theme music this week.
Sweet.
I mean, just kind of going to blurt some stuff out here, but it sounds like with that kind of talent and ability, there's a lot of opportunities to bring music and joy to, like nation. If I were musical, I'm not. People sometimes assume I am because of my hair. But, like, you could go to Nationwide Children's or go to nursing homes and, entertain people and, and be a bright spot for them. I think, there's probably a lot of opportunities for you to get out and about and entertain folks.
I'd say mentor. Become a mentor to children. There are so many places that could use somebody with your talents. So I'd say mentor.
Yeah. You could definitely go find some podcasts doing social good that you like and that you want to see and offer to score their stuff. Yeah. And take it over there.
Hi, thank you to all three of you. My question's about, as your companies grow, how do you maintain your integrity with the social causes and the people first plans that you have, rather than kind of selling out, if you will, and kind of losing sight of why you began in the first place?
We had a fascinating experience with a company most of you recognize the name of. They're Pfizer. Pfizer Pharmaceuticals was one of my best and biggest clients. But they kept wanting us to reduce our rates and commoditize our rates and compete with India. And if we went that route, it costs a lot of time and a lot of money to find and screen our workforce. It may sound easy, but it's not. So we recognized we had to be really bold. And even though we were intrigued and entranced by the marquee name of Pfizer, if we stayed with Pfizer, we couldn't afford to stick with our mission. So it was a serious business mission and a thoughtfulness of how do we find markets that will respect our margin so we could always give the priority to our niche workforce.
Yeah. And then for us, one of the points of our charter is we are uncompromising, and we make these bold declarations about what we're doing in public, and we don't back off of the benefits and our focus on our people. Yeah. So we are adamant about trying to be one of the best places to work in the world.
I'm going to jump in with a question of my own, and then we'll get back to you guys. We have time for all of them, I promise. But one of the things I always wonder when I see businesses and people trying to do good is how you walk the line between doing good for people that need it and between being performative about it and being a savior and patting yourself on the back too much. I think it's particularly easy in working with marginalized communities and doing work that gives funds to causes that need it to make it more about you than about the work. How do you manage that, and how do you avoid that? Because it would be very easy in your situation, to say, I'm helping these people, look at me. And I can tell that you're not doing that. But how do you manage that?
So I keep coming back to something we talked about earlier, which is you're a business first. And if you don't have sound businesses practices that you can learn at a school for social enterprise. If you don't have that, you're still a business first, and you will not exist unless you operate like a sound business. So just because, I cannot tell you how many parties I've been to where people say, I have a son or a grandson, or somebody down the street has a disability, will you hire them? And it's like, oh, no, of course not. We have to look at their resume, screen them, and can they do the friggin' job? We're business.
Yeah.
First.
Totally. How about you?
Yeah, I think for us, it's that we're just heavily focused on our people. You know, I see a lot of businesses that pay their people minimum wage. They suppress benefits, if offer any at all, and then they're out and about at all the philanthropic events. You know, writing big checks and getting a lot of attention and I think gratuitous attention that's based on their own philanthropy, while they are perpetuating the cycle of poverty based on how they treat their team. And, you know, for me, personally, I think that's morally wrong. I think it's morally wrong to not pay people living wages. And so I think that's probably the extreme version that I see in business, is people that are driving profits, taking that out, and then, you know, getting all of the attention for being philanthropists when they're not taking care of their people. Yeah. So I think, you know, for us, it's again that we focus heavily on our people. You know, we actually have a sliding scale on what people pay for their health insurance. So our lowest paid employees are paid like less than $9 a paycheck for very affordable, like low deductible health insurance. And I pay the most, which is fair. You know, so I think it's just really being intentional about what does impact look like? Is it simply writing checks to charities? I don't think so at all. I think it's really about, you know, that if we've got great people who believe that it matters that BrewDog is in the community, then that is going to have a ripple effect, not only with our customers, but also with the organizations that we work with and support.
Yeah. To follow in this idea of not self-aggrandizing the good that you do, are there some things that you do in your company that are a social good that you don't talk about at all, that people don't know? Could you share one thing if that is the case? You said a lot of what you're doing already.
Yeah.
Is there something that you just don't toot your horn about that your company is doing every day that is social good?
We have a corporate culture of inclusion, respect. We want to be. Somebody said to me when I got this very large contract, what do you want to be known as? And I said, what kind of leader do you want to show up as? And I said, I want to create a workplace where, okay, this is before most of your time, Cheers, where everyone...
I watch Cheers.
Really?
Reruns.
But
Hulu,
I want it to be a place where everyone knows your name, and you're heard, and you're engaged, and you matter, and you're not a number. So a big part of our work is call center work, which is known for grind in, grind out. But we have such high retention rates because people feel engaged and like they matter.
How do you make a workforce like that get to know the rest of the workforce?
It's how you manage, how you hire, just your whole philosophy, and it all starts from the top.
Yeah. Which side is next? I think, is it this side? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you all three for the conversation tonight. Hearing about these BrewDog protest beers is making me regret giving up beer for Lent. I'll make
That'll
up for it.
forgive you if you have one.
Yeah, especially because it's a good cause.
Yeah.
So my question is, in a moment when our politics seem to be broken, I sometimes take hope from the fact that some companies seem to step up and do good and make changes that you don't see us being able to do in a political way. And in particular, I'm thinking of like Dick's Sporting Goods in the aftermath of Parkland, restricting age just for their particular business. So what are your thoughts on ways that we can move ahead and progress as a society through business at a time when our other avenues for doing so seem to be blocked up? Thank you.
I think I talked about this briefly before. I think it's important to take sides, and I think it's important authentically, right? Like Pepsi made a disaster of their attempt to take sides, right? We've seen that, and Lady Big Pens, and I was eating man Doritos earlier today, but I think brands have to authentically engage if they're going to do it, and to absolutely take sides. So to see REI saying we're not going to work with this supplier because they make guns, and we're out, is extremely, and so some customers are like, F those guys, we're not shopping there, and some customers are like REI for life. And I think that there are a lot of brands that are authentically stepping into the fray, which I think this is an important moment to do so, because this isn't, to me, a political discussion. It is about there are right things going on and wrong things going on. It's binary and moral. And and some brands are stepping up for that and not worrying about like, oh, we don't want to offend the Nazis. And I think that that's totally okay to offend the Nazis.
So this is interesting. There is somebody on my senior team that's a Trump supporter, and we found this contract that was worth significant funds, having to do with the wall. And
I want to hear more about how y'all would be involved with that. Call center work in regards to the wall?
IT support for the teams, the engineering teams.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just like a no-brainer. I mean, how could I look at myself in the mirror?
You're saying you wouldn't do it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because they needed a woman-owned small business, and it was like, that's a no-brainer.
Was it hard to say no?
No. I was offended to be asked.
Okay. All right. We got 12 minutes left. I want to get to the 3 other questions, and I have one more question for you guys, so we're just going to lightning around these. Go ahead.
Thank you guys for being here. I actually have a question about how governments can better support businesses. So I think oftentimes we see really negative examples of policies and regulations, maybe incentives that are given to businesses that catch a bad rep in the media. And so I'm wondering if you guys have an example of a policy or a program or incentive that your company benefited from that maybe is positive, or if not, something that you would like to maybe see the government better implement to support businesses.
Could I take that one first?
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, the Small Business Administration is all about supporting small businesses. And they provide one-on-one counseling, and they provide networking events. And seriously, it's all free. So they do something really right, because their whole existence is about helping small businesses develop business plans, network, get certifications. It's free.
Yeah, so we have the benefit of property tax relief in Canal Winchester, which is why we built our brewery down there. We're working with the city on our wastewater so that we can be fully green. And Congress recently passed a tax relief act for craft brewers, for small craft brewers and wineries, which
just for that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. It's like craft.
Yeah.
So production under a certain level isn't taxed the same way the big guys are. So that was really helpful for small, especially for small scale craft breweries.
Thinking of Donald Trump, one of the things that he talks about all the time is rolling back regulations that would impede the progress of small businesses. Have any regulatory changes that we've seen in the first year of President Trump helped you guys?
No. No.
Okay.
And actually, the aluminum tax will be really harmful to the beer industry.
If that happens.
If it happens.
If I were a betting man, I'd say wait it out.
Yeah.
Same question to you.
But we've got to start thinking about that and the impact of it now.
Yes.
So if you want to do business in the federal government, there are all kinds of certifications you can get to help you give leverage to get contracts. So I'm a woman-owned small business. So when Hillary didn't win, because Hillary was all about small business, especially women-owned small businesses, So Ivanka is charged with leading the administration's effort for women-owned contracts, and it's like, give me a break. Give me a break.
Do you think they might surprise you and do something good for you?
Not a thing. Not a thing.
All right.
Not a thing.
2 more questions. You, sir.
Yes, thank you for being here. So the conversation, social entrepreneurship, right? It's about starting something, right? And it occurs to me that, you know, it's fundamentally the idea of doing well while doing good, right? And the integration, right? It's more integrated. It's not just we sell stuff and then we go write checks for good causes. But I'm wondering if each of you could provide 1 or 2 sort of tips or some counsel for people in this room or listeners who want to actually do something, right? What advice would you give to someone who's looking at sort of bringing these 2 ideas together, the idea of forwarding a business idea and the idea of doing good? You've both done it in different ways and in different places, and I'm sure you got some just very practical advice. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think you know, that you have to build a real business, a functional business, before you can worry about impact. So, you know, if you can't feed yourself, it's hard to feed anybody else or do anything. So I think that's kind of the center of the universe, is there a real business model, not just a business model that does good things. Because a lot of times I think people that are interested in social enterprise get caught up in like, well, we want to solve this, you know, this electricity problem or this water problem or this hunger problem, and then there's not actually a solid underlying business,
right,
or a functional business or a business that can ever make money in order to push that mission forward. So I think they, as you mentioned, they have to be integrated, but you have to have a real business and then figure out how you want to do good with it. And you know, because like truly any business can have a social mission. Right, like I sling beer, and
right,
yet we think we can change the world.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I was selling T-shirts, and we thought we could, you know, we were having a huge impact on how people express themselves in positive and unique ways. So, like your mission can be driven, but by the business has to be able to stand up.
I think you said that beautifully. There's nothing I could add.
I think that's really great. I just wanted to say I've seen a lot of nonprofit organizations try to do something that's sort of businessy, and they have no clue, right? And so they're often investing a ton of energy to make like $175 for about 400 hours worth of work. So I really appreciate that particular piece of advice, because I think it's very salient for people who are going to start off doing something. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. We got 1 more question from the audience, and then 1 more question from me, and then I would say we're going to go to the lobby and have your beer, but it's not here tonight. Next time. Go ahead.
I just wasn't sure about bringing like cases to a student event. I don't know.
It would have gone over really well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll do it next time.
Yes.
Thanks for talking with us. My question follows up really nicely with what he was asking, actually. I wondered what your ideas are for formalizing partnerships between existing nonprofits and existing government agencies to sort of use this social enterprise sector as an up-and-coming sector to fill the gaps that are currently not being met by either the nonprofits or the government. And how do you see your ideas for your sector specifically to build those formalized partnerships to fill those holes?
So there's a word I couldn't hear. Could you summarize what you just asked? Because I just want to make sure.
A little bit louder.
Yeah, okay. So just what are your ideas for formalizing partnerships between existing nonprofits and existing government agencies to fill the gaps that aren't currently being met with your specific sector of social enterprises?
Okay. So could you give an example of what you mean?
Kind of like a public-private partnership, I'm thinking.
Is that what you're talking about, public-private? Okay, so I don't know if this makes sense, but there are whole agencies like the Rehab Services Commission, which is, the whole agency is created to get people with disabilities employed. So that's a government, quasi-government entity. We actually go to them as referral sources that we could employ. So that's how we use a government entity for a for-profit cause. But your question was, how do you use a government entity for non-for-profit? Was that your?
Yeah, combining them sort of to partner. But yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
So I'd been told early on that public-private collaboratives are very well thought of, especially if you want to get funding from the government. I haven't really engaged in them, but I know of companies that have, and they've been tremendously successful. And if you want to talk more one-on-one, I could go into the details.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mary, that it's really around that the business community. So even in Columbus, the business community has stepped in to help with like infrastructure. So it's public-private, so government, not-for-profits sometimes, and the private sector all joining forces to solve really interesting and challenging problems in the community. But there are, in transportation, that's a big one that's happening. In education, there's stuff going on. So there's a lot of examples of that functioning. And Columbus is very functional in that public-private partnership realm.
So one thing I just want to share with you quickly is one initiative we've been introduced to is providing telehealth and supportive care services to Native nations. And that's an example of working with for-profit, non-for-profit, and government in terms of funding to help bring this concept together. So it can be done, but how to do it would take a lot more time than we have. So stay around, we could talk about it.
Last question. I read up on both of you guys. One thing you said stuck with me. You said of your work style, you take bullets and try to throw back grenades. What does that mean? And give me the best example of you tossing back a grenade.
I know. I think, in a lot of ways, as the leader of BrewDog USA, we get involved in controversy from time to time, and and I'm always willing to jump into the fray and take the bullets, so that the team is not affected or impacted by that. But then, I'm known to not have an edit button.
You did tonight. You said the S word a little.
I said shit show one time, yeah.
Again, well, now twice. I'm fine with that.
But I think that as an entrepreneur and as a business leader, I have a platform which is an opportunity to make a difference, hopefully. And so I don't mind throwing back grenades.
Biggest grenade that you've thrown back? An example?
Yeah. Even so, this morning with this pink IPA thing we've had going on. There was a lot of some hate on Twitter because they're like, it says on the can, beer for girls. I'm sure this is a bunch of dudes in the boardroom.
And you were like,
with their ham-fisted attempt at coming up with like beer for ladies. And so I just like tweeted back like, here's a ham-fisted high five, and I'm munching on my man Doritos, and wrote this tweet with my pink Bic lady pen. That's the most recent grenade, but it's a pretty good one, I think.
That's a very good grenade.
Okay.
I'll take it. This has been a pleasure. I have enjoyed it so much. I think we're going to hang out in the lobby for a bit, but thank you both for the work that you do and for talking with me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This is great. All right.
Well, thank you all for coming. We're worried. It's the first time we've done this, and you all deserve a great round of applause for really participating in this discussion. It truly was a dialogue. So for WOSU Public Media and the Glenn College's brand new School of Social Entrepreneurship, right?
All right. Yes.
We'd like to thank you all for coming, and please, another round of applause for our great panel here today.
This is someone